Imagine waking up tomorrow and every clock in the world is gone. Your phone, your watch, the microwave, the clock on the wall, all of it just gone. No time zones, no alarms, no, it's 3 p.m., nothing. How would you know when to wake up, when to eat, when winter is coming? Now imagine that's not just your tomorrow. That's every single day for your entire life and for every human who came before you. And yet somehow, ancient civilizations built cities, planted crops at exactly the right time, predicted eclipses, tracked the movements of planets, and created calendars so accurate that we still use versions of them today. So the question isn't, did they understand time? Because clearly they did. The real question is, how? And some of the answers are going to make you question just how primitive these people actually were. Number one, the stars. Let's start with the oldest timekeeping tool in human history, one that is still above your head right now, every single night, the stars. Before cities, before writing, before literally anything we would call civilization, humans looked up. And what they noticed was that the stars move, not randomly. They move in a pattern, a very consistent, very predictable pattern. And once you start to notice that pattern, you realize something incredible. The sky is a clock. Think about it. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west every single day without fail. That gives you morning, afternoon, and night. Your basic daily cycle right there. No batteries required, but it goes deeper than that. Different groups of stars appear at different times of year. The ancient Egyptians noticed that a star called Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, would disappear for about 70 days every year. And then, one morning, right before sunrise, it would reappear on the horizon. And do you know what happened every single time it came back? The Nile flooded. Every year, and that was like clockwork. Sirius comes back. The flood follows. For the Egyptians, that wasn't just a fun coincidence. That was the start of their new year. That one star told them, plant your crops now. Get ready. The season is changing. That is using a star as a calendar. Indigenous peoples around the world did this too. The Pleiades, a cluster of 7 stars, were used by civilizations on nearly every continent to mark planting and harvest seasons. Native American tribes, Aboriginal Australians, the Aztecs, the Greeks, all of them independently looked at the same group of stars and said, when those appear, it is time. And at night, you could use the stars to tell time as well. Different stars rise and set at predictable hours. Ancient Egyptian astronomers created what are called star clocks, basically charts that told them which star would be on the horizon at which hour of the night. Guards used them, priests used them. They could tell you what time it was at 2 in the morning just by stepping outside and looking up. No phone, no watch, just the sky. And honestly, that is kind of beautiful, but also a little humbling because most of us could not name 5 constellations right now if our lives depended on it. Number two, Stonehenge. You have seen it. Big rocks. Circle, England, thousands of years old. Cool, whatever. Moving on. Except not, because Stonehenge is one of the most precisely engineered structures on the planet, and most people have no idea what it actually does. It is a calendar, a massive stone permanent calendar. Those rocks are not placed randomly. They are aligned with almost perfect precision to the movements of the sun and moon throughout the year. And when I say precision, I mean errors of fractions of a degree. The most famous alignment is the summer solstice. On the longest day of the year, June 21st, the sun rises in exactly the right spot to shine directly through the main entrance of Stonehenge and hit the center altar stone. Every single year, without fail, if you stand in the middle of Stonehenge on the summer solstice, the sunrise lines up perfectly. But that is not all. Stonehenge also aligns with the winter solstice sunset, and there are 56 holes dug around the outer ring that some researchers believe were used to track an 18.6-year lunar cycle, which would allow the people who built it to predict eclipses. These are people who did not have calculators, who did not have written mathematical formulas, and they built a structure that could tell them exactly when an eclipse was coming. Now, here's where it gets a little strange. Stonehenge was built starting around 3000 BCE. That is 5,000 years ago. The large stones that most people picture, the big upright ones with the lintels across the top, those weigh up to 25 tons each. Some of them were brought from a quarry in Wales, over 150 miles away. Think about that for a second. No wheels, no cranes, no steel. 25-ton rocks moved 150 miles and then placed with enough precision to track astronomical events thousands of years into the future. We still do not fully know how they did it. We have theories, wooden sledges, ropes, enormous teams of people, but no one has ever fully replicated it. Modern engineers have tried with actual machinery and found it extraordinarily difficult. So here's the question nobody can quite answer. Why? Why go through that level of effort just to build a calendar? The honest answer is we do not know, but it tells us that whoever built Stonehenge understood time, understood astronomy, and understood it well enough to make it permanent. They were not tracking time for fun. They were making sure it could never be forgotten. Number three, the Antikythera mechanism. This is where things get a little crazy. In the year 1900, a group of sponge divers off the coast of a Greek island discovered a shipwreck, and inside that shipwreck, buried under 2,000 years of sediment, was a lump of corroded bronze. They did not think much of it at first. It just looked like a weird rock, but when researchers eventually cleaned it up and started examining it, they found gears inside. Dozens of interlocking gears, some of them barely a millimeter thick, with teeth that had to have been cut with extraordinary precision. This thing was a machine, a hand-operated mechanical device built somewhere around 100 to 200 BCE, over 2,000 years ago. And what did it do? It predicted astronomical events, eclipses, the positions of the sun and moon, the phases of the moon, the movements of the planets. You would turn a crank, and the gears would calculate where celestial bodies would be on any given date, past or future. Scientists call it the world's first analog computer. The level of engineering required to build this thing was not thought to exist until the 14th century. That is roughly 1,400 years after this device was made. When researchers x-rayed it and mapped out all its gears, they were genuinely stunned. This was not primitive technology. This was not someone banging rocks together. This was a society that understood mathematics, astronomy, and mechanical engineering well enough to build a device that could track multiple astronomical cycles all at the same time. One machine doing all of that in 100 BCE. And here's what makes it even more unsettling. We found exactly one, just one, in a shipwreck by accident because some guys were looking for sponges, which raises an obvious question. If something this sophisticated existed, where are the others? Were there more? Did this knowledge get lost? Or was it deliberately kept from spreading? We genuinely do not know. The mechanism is one of the most studied artifacts in the world, and it still has not fully given up its secrets. Researchers are still finding new inscriptions on it, still mapping gears they had not noticed before. It is a 2,000-year-old machine, and it is still surprising us. Number four, A, the Mayan calendar. Now we need to talk about the Mayans because their relationship with time was unlike anything else in the ancient world. Most ancient civilizations tracked time because they needed to plant crops, predict seasons, and schedule festivals. The Mayans did all that too, but they also did something that goes way beyond practical. They track time on a cosmic scale. The Mayan calendar system, and I say system because there were actually multiple interlocking calendars, was among the most accurate ever devised. Their solar calendar had 365 days. The sacred calendar had 260 days, and when you run those two simultaneously, they sync up every 52 years. But the one that really gets people is the long count calendar. This was not tracking days or months or even years. It was tracking cycles of time on a scale of thousands of years. One full great cycle lasts approximately 5,125 years, and it was this calendar that made headlines in 2012 because that year marked the end of one of those great cycles, which a lot of people interpreted as the end of the world. December 21st, 2012, doomsday. Obviously, the world did not end. But what is interesting is that the Mayans themselves never actually predicted the end of the world. They predicted the end of an age and the beginning of a new one. The calendar did not stop, it just reset like an odometer rolling over. But here's what people do not talk about as much: just how accurate these calendars were. The Mayan calculation of the solar year was 365.2420 days. The actual length of the solar year is 365.2422 days. That is an error of less than 2 minutes per year. 2 minutes per year. And they did that without telescopes, without computers, without any of the tools modern astronomers use. Pure observation passed down through generations of sky watchers, refined over centuries. For the Mayans, time was not a straight line going from past to future. It was a cycle. Everything that happened would eventually happen again. Civilizations rise and fall, ages begin and end, and then it all starts over. Whether you believe that or not, that is a remarkably sophisticated way to think about time. And they encoded it into their mathematics centuries before the modern world figured out half of what they knew. Number 5. Ancient Egyptian shadow clocks and obelisks. The last one brings us to Egypt. And while Egypt gets a lot of attention for the pyramids and the Sphinx, one of their most underrated contributions to civilization is something far more humble: the shadow. Egyptians figured out early on that the shadow cast by an upright object changes throughout the day in predictable ways. In the morning, shadows are long and point west. At noon, they are at their shortest. In the afternoon, they grow long again and point east. Mark those positions, and you have built a clock. That is a sundial. And the Egyptians were using them as far back as 1500 BCE. But they took it further. Their obelisks, those massive tapered stone towers you have seen in museums and city squares around the world, were not just decorative. They were precision instruments. Placed strategically in open plazas, the shadow of an obelisk could tell you the time of day, the time of year, and mark important events like the solstices and equinoxes. The obelisk in St. Peter's Square in Rome, originally Egyptian, the one in Central Park in New York, Egyptian. The Washington Monument is essentially a giant obelisk. There is a reason this shape has persisted for thousands of years. But Egypt also went a step further with something called the water clock. This was a bowl with a small hole in the bottom filled with water. As the water dripped out at a consistent rate, markings on the inside told you how much time had passed. Day or night, no sun required. Egyptian priests used these to track the hours of the night for religious rituals. Guards used them for watch rotations. Courts used them to time legal arguments. There was apparently a rule that a lawyer's water clock would be stopped while a judge was reading evidence, so their time was not wasted. The ancient equivalent of pausing a timer. And they calibrated these clocks for different seasons. Because the length of daylight changes throughout the year, they made different bowls with different markings for summer versus winter. They understood that an hour in December is shorter than an hour in June, and they accounted for it. This is not primitive. This is systematic scientific thinking. These people were engineers. Here's the part that does not get talked about enough. When you step back and look at all of this, a pattern starts to emerge. These civilizations knew more than they should have. The engineering, the mathematics, the astronomical precision, some of it still cannot be fully explained or replicated today. And knowledge that advanced does not just appear. It gets built over centuries, passed down, refined, and a lot of it simply vanished. Fires, floods, invasions. The Library of Alexandria alone held hundreds of thousands of texts. It burned. We will never know what was inside most of it. How much did they know that we have completely lost? These people were not guessing, they were watching, calculating, and building systems so precise that some of them still hold up 5,000 years later. And that raises one question worth sitting with. What else did they know that we have completely forgotten?